Welcome back. Last week we talked about doing a stone, a fire agate. So this is what I'm going to work with. Now there is a couple of the stones that I have. They're really, I think they're high quality, but I haven't figured out how to do this. So hopefully you and I are going to learn together. I'm going to take this one here. We're going to do it on diamond wheels. I had cut off a piece before the show just to sort of get the right shape, and the edges on this one here are quite thin, so I'm going to take the back off. I'll grind down the back. I'm going to make the top of it domed, and then we're going to see what it looks like. So let's go. Let's turn on the machine, turn it on the water. So all of these, the diamond runs in water. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to do on the shaping wheel, just on the outside, on the sharp edges, to do my first cut. Okay. So the first cut on this one with the grit is the one that would give you the greatest takeaway. And these are hard wheels that have diamond grit impregnated into it. So just trying to make sure I get my water working. So we're going to try the second wheel here now. So this one here, I'm using it to grind down a little bit on my back. I'm having trouble with the first wheel. Nothing great. So we're going to try the second one here. Now we'll just keep going. So this one here is, I'm starting to take off some of the sharp edges. With your first wheel, it's pretty easy to get, little square edges and so on. So this one cuts less. Okay, we'll just shut off the water. I got one little spot there I want to take off in the back. Yeah, and I'm doing this all freehand. So you may have seen people when they're working with this, what they'll do is they'll have a, what's it, like a hard wax on a stick, dop stick, and they'll use it to hold the piece. But I'm doing this freehand. I find it just gives me a little bit more control. And the other thing is, what happens is as you're starting to shape, the first thing that you're doing, of course, is changing its outline, and then you're starting to think about, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to design? What am I going to make? So many times when we get a gem that's finished, there's a sort of a missing part of the whole process. So what I'm doing here now, as I'm looking at the stone, I'm looking at, what is the color, which way does it go, what should I remove, how is this going to look in a finished piece. So having the equipment to do some of these unique one-of-a-kinds does really truly help you in this whole process. Now, some of you who have been in the shop would have seen I have quite a few rocks here that my daughter Jocelyn, who runs our shop in Halifax, has collected. So I'm just taking off a little bit more. We're going to start to round it. So you can see now with the wet how it's starting to shine. So I'm going into now to our third wheel, which has a rubber back. It's not a hard steel wheel. So when I'm using my hands, I can really, really push hard now. So I'm actually pushing it into the rubber. And this is actually a shaping wheel also. So I'm doing some rocking motions with the gem. And this is giving it the dome on top, if you will. Now, as I'm rocking it, of course, I'm starting to remove some of that red coloring, because in parts of it's only on the surface. So I'm really just trying to think of how this needs to be shaped so I can maximize the, what the gem is going to look like with the red. So this is the last wheel that's used to remove any sort of significant amount of the stone. So it's your final shaping. This is taking off some of the small curves that were created by the other two wheels, or the small edges of the curves. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. I have a small indent in the center there, and I could probably grind it down all the way around and remove it, but I think it's going to add something to it. So it has that deep red center in it. So I'm not going to take that out. I'm just going to keep it going all the way around. There. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to move down to the next tree. Okay, so here we are. We're on the final three. Now these are all progressively finer. Okay, so what you're really doing with the diamond grit on it is you're scratching it. So at each stage you need to make sure is that we've taken all the scratches out. So this is our fourth wheel, and you use exactly the same process of rotating the stone to maintain that dome. Oh, and there it goes. Don't put a CD on top of your 3/4 horsepower piece of equipment. Okay, so as it's wet, you can start to see how the shine is coming again. So we're going to move to the next wheel. I'm checking to make sure that there's water. Now this one seems a little dry, but I maybe miss. Oh, there it is. It's coming. So what we're trying to do now is to remove the scratches from the previous wheel with a finer and finer grit. Again, what you're seeing happen there is really I'm trying to maintain as much of the color as I can. Now there's an area coming up that's looking a little pale, but there's really not much I can do with that because it has to match the rest of the stone. There has to be some fairly smooth lines in the piece that I want to make. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the final. Now this one is about 5,000 microns. So that's pretty fine. So it has, you know, I have a further wheel on the end that I can use dry, but this one here gives you that high, bright finish. And we're going to use that. I'm just going to give it a little adjust here, make sure we get some more water going on it. You don't want to run it dry. What happens then is, of course, you'll just burn off your diamonds. So we got the water going here now. We're going to rotate. We keep turning and rotating the gem. So what you have, not only on the top, but around the edges, a smooth sort of finish. Okay, so it's really starting to brighten up now. You see the center. You see that little piece that we left there. It's got a nice, I don't want to say yellow, but a nice golden color. There's some depth to this stone, and it's going to make a fine piece. So I hope you've enjoyed this. And what we're going to do with this stone is we're going to set this